Hello everybody, and welcome. Welcome to this 8th episode of Contemporary Music Talks. And today I'm super happy to have Roberto Paci Dalò as a guest and also as a host, because I'm here in Giardini Pensili, which is the art residency owned by Roberto and managed by Roberto. So I want to go directly into the presentation. Can you tell a little bit about your work and just give us an idea of what you do, because your curriculum is endless. So it's really huge. So can you do a little bit of a presentation of your work?
So first of all, thank you for being here, guest and host at the same time. Both of us were guest, and it's a bit confusing somehow, but it's okay. And good afternoon, everybody, listeners and viewers. I normally say listeners, it's very, but here we have video as well, so hello, everybody. And I work as a musician and artist since a while. And actually, from the very beginning, I wanted to combine the visual arts domain with the sound and the music one. So that's why you mentioned this curriculum. Curriculum is simply related to my age. I'm very old, by the way.
You don't seem so.
So yeah, I sleep in a freezer. Every night at least I acquire something like 6 minutes in the freeze, and then I get back a bit of time. So that's why I look young, but no buttocks, by the way. So you can even zoom. So I'm real, by the way. So, but that's the point. The combination, the meeting point, between the visual territories and the sound ones. And this includes all kinds of possibilities in music, visual arts, galleries, museums, but at the same time, cinema and theater and other things. So that's why this combination. And I've chosen these since I was a very young kid. When I was 11, I wanted to study music and I wanted to study visual arts, and that's what I did.
That's a really vast field of applications also, because of course visual and music can be combined in many different ways. So I know that you worked a lot as director for theater, or worked with the audiovisual in a performative and also in installations. So there are many different applications, and I think you worked on all of them, probably.
Yeah, but sorry if I use bad words in this. Can I use bad words?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you very much. So, sorry, I'm not a multimedia artist. I hate multimedia. I'm not interested. I'm not in relationship with that. I'm a mono-medium artist. This simply means that each domain, each language, each territory, each format requires a knowledge of the history, which is behind that. So that's why when you make a concert, is a concert. It's not almost a concert. If you release a record, believe it or not, this is a record. It's not something like a record. So you can't be an artist. I'm saying artist now with a bit of humor, of course, because artists sometimes they think they can do everything, which is completely wrong. So you have to work in team with other people in order to achieve the right results. And that's why I do need to explore those territories in depth, also through the collaboration with others who know much more than I do in the different fields. So if I make a movie, I need a film editor, I need people who can handle the system. And this is the same for all the rest. But I'm not multi, I'm just mono. I'm very obsessed, And I always do the very same things, which is a kind of, then reorganize in different domains.
Mm. Hmm. That's I think it's a good counterpoint to the idea that we have nowadays, that everything is multimedia, everything is connected, and you can combine everything. But of course there are many different type of figures that works in many different fields, and it's their collaborations that makes an artwork basically. That's super nice. I also know that you are working a lot with the radio, and this is mainly the topic of this conversation, that I decided to put it in the center of this conversation, because I think it's an interesting topic, since you were talking about history, so in the beginning of the radio as a medium, in the 50s and in the 60s, radio was a new medium, and it was really connected with all the type of experimentations regarding contemporary music and electronic music. And nowadays, radio, it seems like an old medium, very old medium, which is very disconnected from the idea that we have of the medium that we are using, like the internet, for example, where we are now basically. So yeah, I was thinking, what's your idea of radio nowadays? What's your approach to radio, and how it is, how it can be used as a medium to develop some ideas and some possibilities, and to communicate.
Okay.
It's probably it's not the question you were you were waiting for, but obviously.
Oh, no, it's okay. Okay, radio is the future. First of all, television is the past. Television belongs to an area next to freezers, wash machines, and so on. So in Italian, we could say television is an elettrodomestico. Radio is a technology, is a transmission technology. So that's why you can't even compare, you can't even achieve from far the potentialities of radio compared to others, other media or television itself. So that's why I work with radio, because radio is the future. But this future is made out of past as well. So that's why it's nice to know what happened before. As you already mentioned, if we think about those radio studios which were produced in between 1952 till mid-80s, last century, they produced zillions of fantastic works, experimental works or not so experimental works, new radio drama, Hörspiele, combination between music, contemporary music, spoken text, voice, all kinds of things. So there's a huge story, there's a huge background which should be known in order to act in the present in a proper way, knowing things which happened in the past. So this is called school, nothing special, but sometimes we forget it. And then the other thing which I'm very fond is the fact that the latest technology, it's not automatically the best one. So that's why digital, analog, and I love to combine those things, because I don't think there's a hierarchy in terms of the newest thing which makes possible for you to produce new things. You can work on the latest software and producing the most obsolete, out of time, not interesting things.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and I totally agree with you that of course the new is not always the best also. And of course it's not mandatory that new instruments and new tools can bring you to new type of contents, new type of ideas, new type of you know, languages also. So yeah, that's
It's also capitalist.
yeah, also yeah.
Sorry to mention this little detail, but the fact that you have to update constantly all the time your system, and because your computer can't read anymore, can run anymore a certain application, this is against the law.
Yeah, that's the why they are updating every time. Every time that I turn on my computer, it is trying to update itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it. That's basically this type of approach to communication and technology. You need to be aware of the new thing to be up to date. But of course, we are not speaking about that because that's not our matter. Our matter is, communication and art and experimenting with the languages. So yeah, I know that you are also a teacher, so you were basically speaking about school before, and can you give us an idea of how teaching changed also your way of making music? Because I think it's a good relationship between learning and teaching. There is always this balance when you are on both sides. You are both learning and teaching at the same time. So what's your approach to teaching and to making music and creating?
Well,
I'm putting a lot of stuff in the front.
It's okay. Well, in a very simple way, teaching is radio. Transceiver, you receive and you transmit. That's it. So my approach to teaching is a radiophonic one. Once more. As more you transmit, as more you receive. So you send and you get signals. And that's why my ideal condition of teaching is more related to a worship attitude. Also, there's another question. If you think about the way university is organized, not only university, but let's say especially university, certain departments where I had the experience of seeing professors during the lesson simply reading a chapter of their own book. This is also against the law, but there are many cases like that. You go to your class and there's a professor and he or she reads a book. What? Send me the bloody file prior to the lesson, and then we talk about that. I don't want to hear your noisy, stupid voices badly reading a text which might be also bad on top of that. So that's why I'm not very fond of that way of teaching. And I do prefer, luckily, I do teach my course at the University of San Marino. The design department is exhibit and interaction lab. So my course actually is a laboratory. It's a permanent lab where we do create things working on different media and so on.
And I know that you have this project which is called USMA Radio, which was born in the University of San Marino, which is basically probably one of the results of all these works with the students also.
Well, actually, USMA Radio exists because there's a history before that. Of course, all the people I've met in the last decades actually, across the globe, and I involved many of them for Uzma Radio. So that's why, despite the fact that Uzma Radio was born in 2017, which is a rather young radio, by the way, but when we started, actually we had already a huge network made out of all these previous collaborations and meetings and connections with places and people. So that's why the radio itself was already adult somehow, was a grown-up radio despite the fact that it was very young. And we wanted to make a radio which was experimental enough, so a radio where you can produce radio calls, this is the normal thing, but at the same time, together with the radio, with the broadcaster, so to speak, we have a school of radio, which is, by the way, the only school of radio in Europe, and the Center for Radiophonic Research Center for Radiophonic Studies, which is also the only center with this, this kind of. So these three things, they run together. So we have a radio station, we have a school where we can learn things, and we have a center where we can study radio in a broad sense, of course. And actually, the idea of this radio within the University in San Marino came from the dean, which back in 2016, he proposed why don't we have a radio here? But it can't be a normal radio campus, a classical university radio, which is mostly of those radio stations, they work looking at mainstream radios. When we're lucky, more cultural ones, where we're not, is just flat mainstream in a gray area. So we wanted to have something different, something experimental and connected with the world. So that's why from the very beginning, Uzma Radio, by the way, usmare in Italian is an old verb which means to sniff, like how the animals, how the beasts sniff, not really the humans. So we wanted to use that one, Uzma Radio. And Uzma Radio is a place for experimental things and experiments all the time.
So how it's structured, this radio? Just, there is broadcast, there are also interviews and programs and can you tell a little bit about this project?
Well, the radio itself is a quite classical radio, so we have a 24/7 broadcasting. We play, of course, music, a lot of music, but we're like the, kind of Bernie Sanders radio, 99%. So we do present that 99% of music and sounds which are not normally on air on the other radio stations, which they present that tiny 1% of the very same things. So we don't broadcast, for instance, rock, pop, jazz, certain kind of jazz, of course, simply because the others, they already do it far better. So they're good. So why we should duplicate this? And when we do present music, for instance, when we do put on air records, basically we broadcast full records, not just one track.
Okay.
For different reasons. One reason is practical, of course, because we have, let's say, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, 1 hour. But this was the beginning. But then afterwards, we realized that it was, a record is like a book. There are chapters. There's a playlist which has been conceived. So that's why, how can you break it? Of course, we could always select a specific track and play it. Basically, we try to do that. And then we have all the rest. We have interviews, we have podcasts, all kinds of podcasts. We have zillions of collaborations with festivals, institutions where we go on site and we do live things. And we try to develop also for the radio, let's say, new formats or a different approach to usual formats.
Like, for example, can you tell us one example?
Well, one example for us was conceived on the 6th of March 2020, when there was the first announcement of the first lockdown. Now we talk about the lockdowns like the first lockdown, the second lockdown. It's like worldwide 1, worldwide 2. And then when we got the information about that, we were here, actually at Giardini Pensili, in this studio on the Rimini hills, which is, by the way, only 15 minutes from the radio itself. We were very close to the border with San Marino. And then we thought, me and Alessandro Renzi, Usma Radio station manager, we really thought in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we have to do something because we're stuck now. We're going to be stuck. At that time, when we got the first information, actually, the news were referring to like a tiny temporary lockdown, which had to end, let's say, at the beginning of April. I do remember clearly the first information we got on the news. And then we said, we have to do something. So the following day, we began a cycle called the Crown. That was, in Italian, it's a kind of game, you know, but Crown, Corona, Coronavirus, Crown. And then for 30 days, every single day at 5 p.m., we had a performance with an artist somewhere around the world. Interactive performance. I mean, we were playing together, not just broadcasting his or her signal. Artists from music, sound, literature, theater, all kind of fields. And then we had 30 performances numbered like Crown 1, Crown 2, Crown 3, and so on. Of course, based basically on improvisation, in the broad sense, also improvisation in between text and music and so on. And so, for us, it's a kind of tiny case study because it was really serious, you know. We really had 30 days where every day we had to, not only to do the performance, but can you imagine, we had to set up all the technical things with the artists. Some of them were completely unskilled, so we had to work remotely. My station manager was let's say, coordinating everything from his own home because he couldn't come to the studio. I mean, it was forbidden to go out, you know, from the house, despite the dog, you know, or the cat. But a lot of people, they bought or they rented out dogs. No, they rented dogs and cats, and children. You know, I know that there was a terrible children market at the very time, at the very moment, you know, people realized that if you have a kid, maybe you have to bring the kid to the, I don't know, to the kiosk maybe, or to the church, then you're allowed. So they were renting those kids. It was horrible, by the way. So, but the performance was just a tiny moment during the day, of course, between 5 and 5:30, 5:40. They were spanning in 30, 40 minutes length, not more. But then we had all day long to set up everything, communication, visual things, graphics, and so on. So it was a huge work. That's why at that time we were working like 13 hours a day, 14 hours a day. So we doubled our regular time. And we were really working from 8 in the morning until evening. Well, late evening, so to speak. So that's, I like to mention this Crown project as a kind of, you know, reference for us. And what happened afterwards, we had these 30 days, and then we added 3 more performances weekly. And then we've been discovered by a cultural office in Styria. So together with our friends and partners, we created a quartet called the Crown Quartet with Tibor Semzo, Mia Zabelka, and Sara Mani. So this is a group in between Italy, Croatia, Istria, Croatia, Hungary, and Austria. And we had a couple of performances afterwards, which were broadcasted by FM radios as well in Styria and all around the place. And then we're going to have another performance. It will happen on the 12th of October in nearby Klagenfurt. But this is the result of Crown. So Crown created a group of artists working remotely and interconnected. And now the 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 result somehow of this, it will be a performance where for the first time we'll gather all together in the very same physical place. So I think it makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And yeah, I don't remember if I'm crown number 2 or 3.
You were in. I forgot. I forgot
But
as well.
I was there in the beginning, probably, and yeah, I totally understand this, this urge of, creating connections and working together, and this medium and this language allows us to create those kind of connections and relationships that, for me, it's something so important, and of course it's also the reason why I'm doing all this, and I'm interviewing you today and all the people that I interviewed before. So yeah, that's one of the, I think, one of the best thing that came out from that bad moment.
Well, I think lockdown was interesting. Of course, we can complain about and we're still in the middle of this kind of disaster. At the same time, in our case, of course, this is a kind of luxury situation, being on the hills in a very quiet spot, not being really locked in the house, because we could walk around here. And I was walking every single day. I never walked that much before, because being stuck for a couple of months like that, but I could really walk through the fields, little rivers, tiny roads all around the place. And for me, that was a discovery of this place. But of course, when we go into the city, where people was stuck, maybe 5 people in the very same tiny flat, completely locked, a lot of mothers. Well, actually, there were not that many mothers. I was surprised that people was reacting pretty good in that. I didn't expect that kind of, kindness somehow. I would freak out, I must admit, sharing the same space for a long time. But anyhow, as Gerfried Stocker said, the director of Ars Electronica Center in Linz and the Ars Electronica Festival, at the beginning of this, at a certain point, he came out with a tiny video where he simply said the most obvious thing, and I totally agree. This lockdown and all these remote connections, blah blah, is the biggest ever, let's say, digital school project worldwide. Never happened before. This is really never happened. There was a kind of, in a broad sense, people from all around the globe, all kind of ages, culture, and so on, background, they were forced somehow to get into that. Think about Italy with this old didattica a distanza, like remote schooling, so to speak, through the various systems and so on. This was just incredible. So there are interesting things which happened, which we couldn't go through analyzing those things until now, because we're in the middle of that. But something happened, and that's why even a very bad situation like this could bring also interesting sides.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's also, I'm not usually optimistic in general, but I think it's a good example that can give us the idea that there are possibilities out there, and that we can create this web of connection that is not only based on, of course, the internet, but it's a more deep concept of creating connections and creating these interactions. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind, especially from now on, because we had that example, and we cannot forget about it. It's something that we have to keep in mind clearly. I don't know. We touched a lot of stuff in this conversation, and but of course we have also the idea of playing something.
That would be lovely, you know. I mean, this conversation was a simple excuse in order to jam a little bit, as we agreed a long time ago. So forget what you've heard until now, because now comes the real thing, which will be the two of us jamming a little bit, playing with some toys, some devices, some mixers used as instruments, some instruments used as mixers, some radio receivers, which will be put into that. It won't be long. It will be a small performance, don't worry about it. But yeah, that's what we want to do at the moment.
Exactly. We are mono media. We are musician basically.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's our work.
We don't talk. We just play.
Let's play.
Yeah.
thanks everyone for tuning in into this episode of Contemporary Music Talks, and thank you, Roberto, for this session. It was super nice.
Thank you, Andrea, and here we are.
I want to play all day long, all days after such sessions,
Okay, because you're really excited and you're really clapping at the moment, you can have a little encore.
Yes.
A short piece like Chopin or something like that, in order to, to reinforce our credibility.
Okay. Let's go.
Thank you, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a nice time. Stay safe and take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.